Hello, Brad. For assignment 3, um, my professional learning journey reflection, I hope that it's okay that I've done a video. Um, I've learned quite a bit of things that I would like to carry on into my classroom over the last 6 weeks. Especially my assignment 2, I believe. Um, when I got to open up about my how assessment worked for me. I've never done that before. It was a first, but I felt like I felt comfortable enough to talk about it. Um, it's been a journey, and I can't wait to see where my journey is going to end up. I seen a lot of assessment while I was in placement for 11 weeks. I really enjoyed most of what my host teacher did. Um, there was a lot of just not sitting down with the student, getting them to go over what they have learned. It was done in a way where the children were kind of exploring and um, doing things on their own or in groups or a whole class. Um, I really enjoyed getting to learn about the EGLA while I was in my placement and getting to see the progress of the students, even from the little bit of time that I was there to when I left. Um, the I am now supplying, and I actually got hired on as a supply teacher under a local permit just before Christmas, and I couldn't supply until my placement was done. Um, and my first 2 jobs were in high school. I've never done a high school before, so that was very interesting. The children, I don't know if it was just the class was in, were very quiet. To me, it was like they were like kind of robots, and I'm a little more easygoing, and I was trying to talk to the students, getting them to interact, um, which it actually did help. Most of the students did talk to me. Um, but there was one thing that I did notice. I didn't fully read the post that came through for that job. I seen child studies. I was like, great, I know that, but didn't realize there was math and science as well being taught that day. Um, I am not great at math. I can figure it out, but the teacher had left something new for the students to learn that day, and I didn't quite think that was fair for the students because I'm really not. They didn't specialize in math. So I felt horrible and I said, listen, there's an example sheet here if you want to use it. I can try and figure it out. And the students actually didn't do too bad. They came up to me after class. They're like, listen, we tried our hardest. I said, well, that's all you can do. So that was really the only thing that I actually didn't really prefer seeing. But I mean, that's not my classroom. I wouldn't do it that way. Um, Throughout this class, I really have taken a liking to peer assessment and self assessment for the students, um, because I think that if all of the assessment is coming from a teacher's mouth or an adult's mouth, how much are these students actually taking in? And I'm not saying like they're not taking in what we're saying, but how much are they really wanting to do if it's coming from an adult? Because I know with my own children, I may say something and 10 minutes later they're doing the same thing. um, so, but I found, even with my own children and working, that they listen to their peers a lot more than they did an adult. So if it's coming from a peer, and even like introducing ways of a positive feedback from children or from their peers would be amazing too to have in a classroom. And that is just a couple of the ones that I am really wanting to bring into my classroom as I proceed in my teaching. The school that I was at for my placement, the last staff meeting that I was at, we're actually talking about doing self-assessment with students and peer assessment, bringing it into the school. So that's exciting for that school to be actually introducing that to the children, and hopefully it's a positive way and they can use that. The first quote that I want to say it's from A New Rhyme for Responding. So, introducing think time transforms classroom questioning. When we prepare students to use the pause to reflect. So, if I really like this because I find a lot of times in classrooms, and especially in elementary school, there's not like a big gap of time to just stop and um, let children think. I have noticed they've added brain breaks within the classroom, so the children get up and dance or whatever. But I really think they need think time to process what they're learning and and carry through. Um, the next one, and this is a big one for me because I wish I would have known this when I was younger. Making mistakes in learning is actually better than not making mistakes. I always thought that if you made a mistake, it was wrong. And that is not the case. And if you make a mistake, to me now, it means I'm still going to learn. I learned, okay, there may be a different way to do this. And I think that's really important to embed in children as well, because I know in elementary it's shifting, so they are going more towards mistakes are okay to make. Um, but as like I witnessed in the high school level, I'm not sure if this was embedded when they were in elementary school, but I noticed a lot of students, if they didn't know how to do it, or if they did something wrong, they would give up and get frustrated with it and get angry. For instance, at the high school that I was in on Thursday, this child was getting very frustrated with his writing. I went over and I noticed he was getting mad. He was punching the desk. So I went over and I sat down. I was like, "What are you having a problem with?" I said, "What's going on? Can you show me?" And he's like, "I don't understand this." And it was it was about a, the characteristics of the character in the book that he read. I said, "Okay, what did this guy look like? Was he tall? Was he short? Did he have long hair, short hair? Was he bigger? Was he kind?" And I just went and through and listed some things. And at that point, I don't know, he just started typing. And he actually finished that assignment while I was there. So I really think that letting students know that mistakes are okay is a very, very big thing. And I've actually used this in supply teaching that I've been doing lately. Um, and another one I have used, and I've even used this in high school, is yet. I know I've had a few of them saying, "I don't get this, I can't do this." And I'm like, you know what? You don't know it yet, but you will get there and you will know it. And actually, that took some of the high schoolers off guard, and they were like, "What did you say?" So they started asking me more questions as well, and I just sat there and I talked with them, and after that, they seemed to go in and do their work. Um, Another quote that I found from The Right Question, the Right Way. Um, Students raise their hands only to ask questions, not to answer them. I like this. Um, a big thing with me is I don't like when they raise their hand. I like to hear talking, as long as it's not like disrupting other classes, but I like to hear talking and children discussing what they are learning and what they are going to do with their learning. Um, I know this has nothing to do with the process of learning, but when I was in the high school, children kept raising, or the students, the future adults, I should call them, kept raising their hands to ask to go to the bathroom. And finally, I said, "Listen, guys," I said, "you guys are going to be adults fairly soon." I said, "So if you need to use the bathroom, raise your hand, I'll acknowledge you, and just go to the bathroom." And they looked at me as if I had three heads. They're like, "Really?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I'm in this classroom. Yes, I'm your teacher, but I'm here to respect you, and hopefully you guys will respect me in return." And they literally looked at me and said, "We've never had any teacher or supply teacher say that to us." And I think through all the classes that I had, I didn't have two students come back. The rest returned and sat there and did their work. So even though this is about questions and stuff, I think earning the children's respect as well, and giving them respect in the way of talking and asking questions is a perfect example of maybe how classrooms should be doing things. Um, this came from week 6, and it goes into when I was talking about mistake making. The inspection of mistakes can play a powerful role in an individual's process. And I got that out of the article Inspection Worthy Missed. And it is very powerful when you have grade 2 students making mistakes all the time and they're okay with it. Like we say, "Well, you made a mistake." I do have a story about that. My daughter, who is in high school, was in an art class, and she's a good drawer. She's amazing. And she comes home, she goes, "Mom, this teacher is tearing my art apart." And she said her boyfriend Bryson did an amazing picture, and the teacher tore it apart. I said, "Well, why would the teacher do that?" And she said, "Well, she said that it wasn't the way that it was supposed to be." And I said, "Well," I said, "isn't art about what you make? It's yours." And I said, "Listen, this is school. Listen to the teacher. Don't be disrespectful. Get your grade and move on. If you like your art the way you like it, keep it that way." And I really wish, and it could be the way the teachers were taught or the way the teacher is, but I really wish sometimes teachers could stop and think of what they are saying to their students, because sometimes that impacts a student more than they know. Um, the next quote I would like to use: "The important thing is to say the words, to name, note, encourage, and value the creativity in the work." And this came out of week 6, assessing creativity. Same as I said about my daughter's artwork. I find even like when I was in the classroom and the children were doing their writing, it was their drawings because they would do a picture above it and write. It was their creative work. It was what they had running through their head, and I found they wrote more about what they wanted to write about than they did if they were assigned something to talk about. And I learned that pretty quick. Um, I did one time, and it was just because how the teacher ran her class. I gave them something that they had to find out of a book and write about that. And I didn't find they wrote as much or was um, interested in as much as when they could use their own head, their own heads, their own imagination, what they wanted to write about. I've seen a lot of their creativity come through that. Um, Another assessment tool that I would like to talk about is feedback. And I got this from week 5. Students see feedback as a tool to help them with their learning and growth within the classroom. It should not be something that reflects their position, but something that helps them find their full potential. This was my hardest thing to do in placement was feedback because I don't like doing it. You had to give one one thing that they needed to work on, and I found it was very negative under my host teacher, and then you gave a compliment to their work. I probably won't take this one along with me. Um, it was more about like their punctuation and stuff, and I get that they have to know that, but I'm sure you can work on that in other ways than writing it right in their writing book. So feedback for me is I think you need many different types of feedback within the classroom, like peer feedback, their own feedback, and even if sitting down with the child one on one and saying, "Hey, I've noticed you've missed a couple of periods in your writing. How can we remember to put our periods in?" Or I've noticed that you've missed your capitals. How can we remember that? Um, because with this assessment thing in the classroom, the teacher would go around and read, so everybody at that table would hear what they did wrong, and I don't agree with that. And it's nothing on the host teacher. That's just how she does her classroom. But for me, I rather sit one on one with my students. So that one was very hard, but it also taught me of what I want to do in my own classroom, and along with this this course has taught me many things of what I'd like to see in my classroom and what I would like to do. There is one question that I've had running through my mind and that I've pretty much always had running through my mind is why do we give children grades? It's I know they need that, or do they need that? It's a question that runs. I with my own children, they don't see their grades because I don't want them to base themselves on that grade. I think assessment can be presented to people or to children in many different ways that maybe they don't need grades in the younger years. Um, I've just seen and heard a lot of like my friends say like, oh well, this kid got this grade and but my kid that got that grade. Why do it? And even children saying, well, that kid got a 3 and I got a 2. Well, why? So for me, I don't like grades, and I know that's part of teaching, and that was also another hard part of my placement was when we were doing the assessment for report cards. She's like, should they get a 3 or should they get a 2? And I'm like, well, is there a 2 plus? Is there like I didn't know really what to say because again I was only with those students for at that point it was 10 weeks, and I seen their work and I really didn't want to give them a low mark because they were really great kids and they knew their stuff. Sometimes kids have a hard day and like they're not going to perform as well as they do on a good day. So For me, grades can be invalid sometimes if you're basing it off just a few assessments. I I think assessment can be done in many ways. You can do videos throughout the class. There's the EGLA. Um, there's the own children's work. Your observations. Um, so that is my question: is right now, who is the assessment really for in the school system? Just to tie this up, um, at parent teacher, I was talking to my daughter's grade, who was in grade 4, her teacher, and she said to me that they are taught or told by the district to not trick children with questions. And but they have a provincial assessment, I believe, in math, and all the questions on there are trick questions for children. And I asked her, I said, well, why would the district do that? If they are telling you guys to not teach that, why is the district giving these children a test that is full of trick questions? So there's another question, another example of assessment, which I don't think is fair for that the children have to go through that. They shouldn't be tricked first off in any type of learning. And the teacher actually fully agreed with him. She said, yes, I fully agree. She said, if a child gets a good mark on this assessment, they worked hard for that mark. So, to tie up and end my reflection is I've learned a lot of where I want to go with assessment in my own classroom. I know grades are part of it, and I'm just going to have to suck it up with that. But again, back to our first week, out of one of the articles, it was sometimes like, don't dwell on things. I won't dwell on it, but I still feel strongly about the question of how grading is done. So, thank you for these wonderful 6 weeks, and um, hopefully, maybe I'll see you or you'll be a professor again. So, thank you, Brad.